Okay. So welcome. Take a look at how many we are here. All friends of Mickey. Mickey, you have a lot of friends. My name is Vonda Dries, and I am one of the directors at the Grunwald Guild in the state of Washington. Mickey has been kind of part of this Grunwald Guild community for, I don't know, he can probably say, but I would say probably close to 30 years. And so what the Grunwald Guild is an art and faith retreat center. During the summers, we have week-long art classes with matins and vespers and kind of a monastic rhythm in community. And Mickey has been part of our faculty for decades now. Just in the last couple of years, we've asked Mickey to give us a talk in the evening, and we've labeled this a Holy Happy Hour talk, and talking about mystics and saints and art and weaving story and image together. And it's been so well received by our community here that given our current circumstances, I reached out to Mickey and asked him if he would be willing to try to do something like that online. And I was a little surprised at how quickly the yes came back. So I'm very, very grateful that Mickey will be giving us about a half hour of art and faith talk. And then we'll open it up to questions. And what we're going to try to do there is, if you have a burning question, go ahead and put it in the chat area. I think we'll just probably have maybe 10 minutes for that kind of a thing. So we probably won't cover everybody's, but that's how we're going to do that. And I will process those questions and let Mickey know. So Mickey, you don't have to worry about the chat thing. And so I think without needing to say anything else, I'm going to go ahead and let Mickey, now I need to find him again. Where did he go? Not there.
Sure, okay, you know where I'm traces of backup.
Mickey, are you, maybe speak up so I can see where you are. Did anybody see him? Now it's a search for Mickey.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but if Mickey's unmuted and he speaks, he should be the person that shows up on the screen.
Right. That's the way it should work.
Miss Judy, Mickey is, oh, there he is. He's unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mickey. And let's give you the speaker view.
And
There we go. And now what I'm going to do, hi, Mickey.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mickey. Kathy and Ted, how are you?
Hi, Mickey.
All
this
right.
is new to all of us, right?
Yeah. What I'm going to do, Mickey, is make you the host. And then what will happen is you'll get a chance to share what you want to share on your screen with us. So are you seeing up?
I see everything, but not, so I hit share screen now to show my pictures?
Exactly, share
All right.
screen. And then there might be another share at the bottom right hand. There we go. Very good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yay. There. So I didn't have to worry about getting my hair anyhow.
Well, we did see you.
And I saw my sister. I'm glad she finally did something with her hair. Anyhow, I'm delighted to be here. And Vonda shared with you about the Happy Holy Hour, and it's an idea we came up with about 3 years ago. When I've been going to the Grill 33 years, and 1987 was my first summer. And I just thought for a change of pace to do Happy Holy Hour. So we gather for 1 hour before dinner, and everybody brings their beer or wine or whatever they like to relax with, and I give a talk, much like they're going to see right here. So I guess technically we should be doing this at 5 o'clock Pacific time so that it could be right before dinner, but here we are at 3. So it's more high tea time. But it's a wonderful opportunity, and I just, after this 5-minute introduction just now and trying to get it all together, I have new sympathy for all my teacher friends who are struggling to teach long distance, who have never done it before. So we're all patient together, right?
Mhm.
Well, can you all see the picture that I have there now? This world in which we live needs beauty in order not to sink into despair. And I just found that quote recently, and it seems perfect for today. I did it, I don't know, a couple months ago, but it was from Pope Paul VI when he was closing Vatican II. And the last group that they addressed at the end of Vatican II were artists and others, musicians, environment people, to welcome them into bringing new sense of beauty into the church. But I just love it now, especially because beauty is what helps us not sink into despair. So as many of you know, I guess most of you, I've been posting things every day, and this was one from Sunday, I think I did it. And I was just so struck last week when I saw Pope Francis walking down the street of Rome with flowers, and he went to visit a cross in one church and a revered icon of the Madonna in another church, both of which were very important back in the days of the plague. So he brought flowers to that and walked through the streets, and we've all seen on the news that people of Italy just singing on their balconies and all. And so I came up with coronavirus Italian style there. And it's just that so let's not forget that there's still beauty and that we're together, even if it's behind closed doors and between walls, we're all together in this. And so he also said that same day, here we cry and we suffer, all of us. We can only get out of this situation together as a whole humanity. So as many of you all know, I love lettering and calligraphy. And so whenever I see a quote that strikes me, it turns into a picture, usually for my morning meditation time. And so with Pope Francis, I'll never run out of ideas, that's for sure. So the first day that I decided to do this was, here's Jesus and the woman at the Purell well. And that was inspired by the gospel reading that Sunday. And the Holy Spirit, as you might know, appears in most of my work, not always, but the Holy Spirit saying, save me a dab down there. Because an important part to me, it's not just about spiritual encouragement and nourishment. We gotta hang on to our humor in the midst of this. So when I went to the ShopRite the other day, in the midst of the line wrapped all the way around the back of the store to the dairy section, and it was the day before St. Patty's Day. So I thought of myself as St. Patrick standing there in line with the cart and see all the toilet paper, and but the famous breastplate prayer of St. Patrick, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ to my right, Christ to my left, Christ above, Christ below. You know, it's a beautiful prayer. And it just took on all new meaning that day in the ShopRite. And I think that's what it's about, finding God, the presence of God, or our awareness of God's presence in these in every circumstance in our lives, but especially now in these trying times. So this was this morning's post. I've been doing these coloring pages. Look at the birds of the air, even they are socially distancing. Be not afraid. Be kind. And this is just a way, be patient. I think that was yesterday. Just ways to, not only do I do these in the morning, as I said, for my morning prayer, or in the evenings now, sometimes too, when the ideas come. I usually just start with the letter B and take it from there, arrange them, try to make them all look similar yet different from each other. And I just completed the one that you'll see tomorrow. But then this was yesterday, be still. And so feel free to send me your ideas for B words I'm going to run out of them eventually, I'm sure. And so I'm loving the fact people are starting to text me or email or Facebook about their pictures to me. And so that's kind of fun. I love this one with the empty glass of wine and the cat there.
You're welcome for that, by the way.
And here's the Holy Spirit. Look at the Holy Spirit. I'm just looking at it now, and it's like turkey feathers, doesn't it? Turned a dove into a turkey on that one. And there too. And so the other day, I'm learning a lot of history because I've been researching saints and all from history who were helped out in times of plague. And I remembered I had a friend of mine who had been to Italy years ago brought me home the gift of a mask, a plague mask. So I thought, oh, that's kind of fun. What they did, the doctors back in the time of the Black Death plague in the 1600s in Venice, they wore these masks to kind of help them keep their distance from the people, breathing on them and coughing on them. But also they would fill the beak of the mask with dried flowers and herbs and all to smell good, because the stench, they said, was so horrible. People were just dying in the streets, literally, and everybody was afraid to go near the bodies. That they had these big black boils all over their bodies. It wasn't a long time from when you first got the infection till death. And so it was this horrific time, and penitence became a big thing. People were going around beating themselves with whips because they thought they had offended God. So I'm waiting for that one. That's coming with our own Christian people saying this is a punishment for whatever thing. So we just gotta avoid that and dwell on God as a healing love, not punishment. What kind of parent would do this to their children? But look at this beautiful thing. It says, this is called quilling. And it was said to be the other day by a woman who took that mask there. And quilling is when you take the fine paper and roll it up real tightly and make these beautiful designs. So I want to learn more about that. It'd be fun to, Fonda, maybe we can do a class of that at the Grunwald Guild sometime. Not me, but you learn how to do it and you do it. So yesterday was the Annunciation, and that's always been a favorite scene of mine. And I just had fun drawing this, and some of this is because I learned how to use the duplicate button on my iPad, so I can duplicate things like the flowers and all there, and that it just becomes a fun way to prayerfully while away my time. You can see Gabriel's hat has Gabe written on it, and this was my color version that I did after finishing the black and white one. Sometimes I have forgotten that I want to save it in black and white first and start coloring, and then I have to do it all over, which is what almost happened here. So Catherine of Siena, she's one of the ones I'm researching, and well, I already knew this, but I'm re-researching. But she was born when she was 1 year old. Horrible plague broke out in Siena, in all of Italy, where 2/3 of the population of Siena died. And people were terrified to go, but she would go into the hospitals and visit people and bring them food and comfort. And then her own, and later in 74, I forget the date now, 13, I mean, excuse me, 74, there was another outbreak when she was an adult, and she lost 6 of her nieces and nephews and prepared their bodies and buried them herself. And people were just rotting in the streets. They were piling the bodies up on carts and digging mass graves and just turning the bodies into these graves. And the next day they'd need another mass grave. I mean, it was that horrific. All of Europe was going through this. So I just love these stories of, so there she is. I don't know that she ever pushed the cart, but there she is with a rosary of roses hanging out of her pocket. Though I walk through the valley of death, I fear no evil, for you are there with rod and staff to comfort me. And I think at times like this, these very familiar prayers and thoughts that we've been hearing all our lives, like this psalm, take on new meaning, don't they? And kind of give us hope. So I try to bring a little whimsy into these pictures. I mean, how you make a cart full of dead bodies whimsical, but it's just, I think it's important to address it. St. Charles Borromeo was another great guy. He was a Cardinal Archbishop of Milan, and when a plague broke out, and he sold everything he had, gave all his money away, spent the rest of his life in debt. But he even cut the curtains and the tapestries in the church, the cathedral there, and so that they could be made clothing for the poor, because all the wealthy people had left town to escape the plague, and the poor were just like Sienna, were dying in the streets and collapsing. And he reached out, and he had all the altars in the churches moved outdoors, and because they realized that inside people were getting sicker, in the confined space. So mass was outside, and that's when he started the 40 hours tradition. And you Catholics don't know what that is. And that's where the word quarantine comes from. The quarantine was 40 days. And so anyhow, it's been fun to learn all this history, and I like that. And then more recently in history, Dorothy Day stopped writing in 1918. She was 20 or 21 years old, and she stopped writing for a year to become a nurse, because she said she thought it was the most noble profession. This was even before her conversion, and she helped out in the 1918 flu epidemic in Brooklyn, at a hospital in Brooklyn, when all the nurses and doctors had gone over to Europe for World War I. So there's a severe nurse shortage. So I think of all these people with the horrible predicaments our own healthcare workers today find themselves in, and getting sick themselves, and yet still having to go into work. So this is my way of praying for them, and helping us all get through this dark time. Last year, Pope Francis said, "A living fabric has come undone, and we, like weavers, are called to repair it." And he was speaking about the sex abuse crisis, and the devastating effect it's had on the church. But I think it's about more than that too. We're definitely in a time of reform, and so that's what I really want to talk to you about today. These murals that I've been doing a lot of lately, and my first one was at a place here in Camden called Joseph's House. And Joseph's House is a homeless shelter near my studio, which is at Sacred Heart Church in South Camden. I've been there for 12 years at the invitation of Father Michael Doyle, the wonderful pastor, who has provided me with this beautiful space he said, just to create beauty. He said, in this challenged city, beauty will help heal. And so when I was asked to lead the men's retreat about, 5 or 6 years ago, and Joseph's House, a few blocks away, had just opened. So I told the men we're going to do this retreat a little differently. And my friend Karen was, I don't know if she's in today, if not, a friend from the Grunwald Guild, but she happened to be in town, and she came over and helped me prepare the 6 panels on the wall that I drew scenes from the life of St. Joseph, and numbered everything. So it was a giant paint by number coloring book on the walls. And I had a little chart there. All these guys, I think there were 32 men I brought over from Sacred Heart, and there we painted. And it was a wonderful experience, because, over the next 2 years, different groups, high schools and colleges would come in and help finish the paintings. And that was a life-changing thing for me in many ways, because it just introduced me to a whole new way of doing art as a communal experience. And who can't, I remember telling one of the guys, I can't do this. I've never painted. I'm not an artist. I said, if you know your numbers, you can do this. You just have to put aside your fears that you're going to make a mistake. It's just paint, we cover it up. If it drips, it's not a big deal. It's nothing to be afraid of. So 2 hours later, these guys loved it. And every group that it came since, even if it's just for half an hour, 45 minutes, I give them brushes. So we have all these, there's a high school group. I think they were from Virginia that came up and to do service around Camden. But I bring them over there and talk about the service of beauty, that Joseph's House feeds the body because they get a meal there. The guests, they house 80 people a night. Sadly, they can't do that now, but there's new number restrictions. But in any event, what we're doing through paint is feeding the spirit. So they're being fed body and soul. And it's just been, everybody goes out. I say this is prayer time. It's painting time. It's coloring time. It's for you to pray and meditate and go into that quiet place. So it's been awesome for me. There's one of the angels on the left. And I remember one day, probably my favorite experience of the whole thing was when 3 of their homeless guests asked if they could stay behind to help paint in the morning. So they stayed after 8 o'clock, and I went over, and one of the women asked me she said, can I paint that angel there? And I said, sure you can. And we were talking, and I stood next to her painting, and I asked her, I said, why do you want to paint the angel? And she said, because I know God sends angels to keep me safe on the streets, and I'm not afraid. And I thought, oh, this is such a beautiful experience. And no sooner did she say that, and the young woman down the other end, I'd say mid-20s maybe, a very pretty young woman with, she blurted out, I can't tell you how calm I feel. The reason I point out she was very pretty, she had no front teeth from the meth use. And so I went down to talk to her, and I said, is this making you feel calm? I said, how did you get through the winter? And she said it was so cold, and I only had 2 sweaters and a light jacket. She said, but I feel calm painting this scene because it's reminding me of when I was a teenager. My mom and I used to paint ceramics at night on the dining room table. I almost cried right on the spot. I said, this is what this is about. I felt like asking for her mom's phone number to call her and say, your little girl's, she's probably seen better days, but today, guess what? She's all right, and she's happy and calm. And then a minute later, she looked at her watch. She said, I have to go. She's having an appointment at the methadone clinic. And she said, can I come back again? She said, I'm really enjoying this. And I haven't seen her since, but that's what this is about. So there's Joseph having his sleep. There in Matthew's gospel, he had 4 dreams at the nativity. And so there's modern day Camden out the window. And here's the nativity itself with City Hall in the background. And at the time I was working on these sketches, I always love to point out I saw a real baby with that little teddy bear outfit on, and I thought, that's too cute. I got to get Jesus one of those. So that's how Jesus ended up with the little teddy bear thing. But there's our train tracks, and instead of a manger, the cardboard carton. And here's the flight. Instead of the flight into Egypt, it's the flight over the Benjamin Franklin Bridge into Philly, downtown Philadelphia, which is just across the river from Camden. And here's Joseph and a teenage Jesus working side by side in their carpenter shop together. One of the guys did pull me aside and he said, they didn't have drills back then. I said, I never thought of that. And here's the angel on the back end. So it was about 2 years before these were kind of finished, and there you can see the big wall in the room, the dormitory room. And then last summer, they had to renovate and enlarge the space, and those walls had to be torn down. And so it was kind of, they were so sad to tell me, the wonderful people at Joseph's house, the staff. I said, but you know what, the whole idea behind this was, it's nothing permanent. I don't care if they're never finished. It's the process. And that's what happens in our creative side. That's the side of us that's healing and healthy. It's not about the outcome. It's the process of getting there. It's the journey, not the destination, in other words. And so and here's what they did, though. They got a professional photographer in to take pictures, and they had them stretched on canvas. And they're the exact size, and they're in the wrong spots. I got to go over and but anyhow, there they are. So they're back, and who cares if it's not real paint? So because I had so much confidence with that, I did this mural over in Rome, and only took about a week, and it's the whole fall. There's Adam and Mary cowering next to him, and these were my 3 helpers. So we whipped that out in about a week. It's over in the Sistine Chapel. And that's so I just wanted to be part of. Nobody is laughing at the faces. Kidding. You're all too cranky. It's serious. Anyhow, this was actually in California. They had a culture center at the Cathedral of Orange County, and they had this big reproduction of the Sistine Chapel on the front wall. So I thought, I got to fill that in. So my next big project after Joseph's house was 2 summers ago in Nairobi, when a Maryknoll priest friend asked me if I could do some murals at his AIDS relief. It's an AIDS facility, a clinic to treat people with AIDS, that was started by a laywoman who went to her pastor in the early 90s, and she wanted to start a volunteer program to go into the slums of Nairobi and visit people, bring them comfort, and make sure they're taking their medications, whatever existed at that time. And it turned into this huge program that now serves 27,000 people, and with 14 satellite offices around Nairobi. And so we did a mural in the clinic for pregnant women with HIV. And if they visit this clinic regularly and get their medication, they will not pass it on to the baby and live long, healthy lives, thanks to all the new medications that exist today. And so I sent this over. I did this on the iPad and sent it over ahead of time. And I said, we're going to do a visitation of Mary and Elizabeth in that clinic. I thought, what better image for even their non-Christian clients there, guests, patients, whatever, that they'll see this image of love between two pregnant women. So I drew it in chalk, and this wonderful guy, Samson, who is the social worker for the place, was there and found out. This is how I always know the Holy Spirit's in charge of my life, because I didn't know anything about him. I just wrote them and I said, I need help doing this. I didn't know Samson, their social director, was social worker, loves art. And he said, I'm so excited about this. He said, and so I want to help paint. And he said, I've organized 7 kids. It turns out it was winter break time in Kenya. So all the schools were closed. So I had these, thanks to him, there's our numbers. We numbered everything with chalk. Just used house paint this time instead of acrylic artist paint. A lot easier, and it's climate sensitive and all that. And so we had these 7 kids, teenagers, all of whom have HIV because their mothers didn't have access to the medications. And so this was a healing time for them. My friend Rick kept saying, he said, this means so much to them because they're ostracized at school, and that this was such an opportunity for them to just be kids together. They were teasing each other, they're having a good time, laughing, taking breaks and listening to hip hop music on their phones. And, it was just, so we started Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon, they had the first mural almost finished. So I drew 3 more, and so there were 4 by the end of the week. I went over there hoping I could get 1 done, not knowing what the circumstances were going to be. But there they are. So that freed me up to sketch. And they loved this so much, they took over. I said, I'm not going to micromanage. My job is done. I did what the Holy Spirit wanted me to do. So they took over, and it was just a joy to watch them, watch the colors evolve, and just sketch the whole thing. I ended up walking around the whole facility and out in the parking lot. I just couldn't sketch enough, I was just soaking it all up. And this is the group of them at the one day, little group shot. But the one boy, the one on the lower right there, one day, pardon me, at lunch, he said, you're always asking us questions. Can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And he said, I thought he was going to ask, why do Americans call French fries or chips French fries or something innocuous like that? And he said, what's your definition of success? And I went, I wasn't expecting that. And I said, I think it's when you discover your gift. I said, every single person has some kind of gift from God. And when you discover that gift, whatever it is, and use it and nurture it, you're going to be happy and successful no matter what you do. It's not about how much money you make. And he said, I agree with that. And that was, I'll never forget that, because I was like, out of the mouths of these marginalized kids came such wisdom, and depth. So there they are. I forgot to bring little brushes to paint features, so I had to tell them to use the wooden end of the brush for the little details. But here's the finished project, and it's Mary and Elizabeth. And the word upendo over there is Swahili for love. And I had them all sign it. We had a Sharpie there, and they all signed their names on this. So it was very, very moving and powerful. Next day, we put the benches back in the room, and here were the mothers there for their clinic appointments, and with Mary and Elizabeth to keep them company in the waiting room, and all those little babies. We then made coloring sheets for kids to color too. And here's the whole group at the end. Last January, I was at St. Joe's. So this is really starting to take off now, which I love. But I went to St. Joseph's Indian School in Chamberlain, South Dakota, right in the center of South Dakota. And so we had a native theme there. And it's a boarding school for all 200 of these kids live in very, very difficult and compromised circumstances back home. But St. Joe's has this wonderful place where they're safe and peaceful, and more than anything, they're learning about their culture, Lakota Indian culture. And so we did this mural in the health center, and anybody who came by was asked to pick up a brush, even if it was just for 5 minutes. So again, it was that whole communal sense. And this little boy's painting St. Kateri Tekakwitha there. There's the finished product in the right next to the elevator in the health center. And and these were kids that the counselors were bringing down. And here's the initial drawing for it. I put these in the wrong order. And but the same idea, painted it and wrote it in chalk, drew it in chalk rather, and then we outlined in black paint. The art teacher helped me do that. There he is. He was a great guy. And then this is the finished product. And up top you see the words Midakue Oyashi, and that's because the Swahili, the Kenya experience. We saw Upendo, the Swahili for love. I said I'd like to have something in the native language here, so that's Lakota. And it means we're all related, or meaning not only people to people, but people to creatures and people to creation. And so it was about that we're all made by the same creator God. It was a beautiful experience to learn so much about Lakota spirituality and Catholic, Lakota Catholic. And so St. Kateri Tekakwitha is on the left, and on the right is Nicholas Black Elk, who's a servant of God, which means he's the first step towards sainthood. And he's standing on Black Elk Peak in the Black Mountains of western South Dakota. And in the center is Mary as a teepee, to signify the sacredness of the home. We're nomadic people and move their homes around. But if you look closely inside the teepee, inside her cape, there is the cosmos. So it's the stars, and it's just to talk about the cosmic nature of all this, that we are indeed all connected. And so much that I learned of Lakota reminded me, I thought the Irish did that 2,000 years ago, and we're 1,500 years ago, Celtic spirituality and St. Hildegard, and we really are all connected, and I love that. And that mural painting is helping me learn that all the more. So last summer, I was at St. Francis de Sales Parish up in New York City at 96th and Lexington. And since it was New York, I said, let's try a Dorothy Day quote. So on the upper left there is the quote I chose, and that was my email, my iPad sketch board. If we could only learn that the only important thing is to love, and to show that love and express that love over and over, whether we feel it or not do anything but love, love, love. Well, she only said it 3 times, but I got a little carried away, and we had loves all over the room. If you see on the right there, the group on the last day, and the woman guarding the paint and supplies table. And again, we used house paint and stick the 6 colors. The hot pink came from artist paint, but the rest we went to Home Depot, and it couldn't be simpler. Paper plates for palettes and brushes, and it doesn't have to be a complicated fuss. So that was summertime, so kids were free, and this was a mother and daughter who came. There were parishioners there, and another mother and her little boy came, and this woman was a principal herself, and she brought her 2 kids. So because there were so many little kids there, and the mural itself was high on the wall, and I thought, ooh, we don't have, I was a little afraid of the kids on ladders and all that. So there were 15 pillars in the room, and so I painted the word love and other things on the pillars in all the different languages that are spoken at that parish. So it's all kinds of love everywhere. The word love just kind of filling that room and that space. And it was just the most wonderful community building time. Great parish staff there, and it was a delightful time. We started Wednesday afternoon, I think, and we're done Friday. And then Jane and I cleaned up on Saturday. It was just the 2 of us, and we cleaned up edges and things like that. Because again, I didn't want to scare people. It's like they made a mistake. It's no big deal. You cover it up. You just don't make a big deal of it. Upendo, that's my Swahili word. And there's Mandarin Chinese, the word love. Pagabig is Tagalog from the Philippines. And Amore is Italian. And there's gives you a sense of the room and the pillars and the columns. So I loved it. It's just a fun time of people coming together, and since that time, they tell me at the parish they love it. They have donuts and coffee gathering down there after Mass on Sundays. Well, not these days, but that's what they've been doing. And so that was finished on Saturday, and then very next 2 days later on Monday, I had to do something up at. Did I show it? No, I have it in the wrong spot. That's the finished product. I'm sorry. And there's the group. The little boy up front, everybody was taking a break, and he taught everybody how to do the floss. a dance I had never heard of before. But there they all over on the other side of the room doing the floss, and I was yelling at them, "You get back to work." Anyhow, DeSales University, 2 days later, they had the Dorothy Day Center, the Dorothy Day Student Union, and I love this. I'm so proud of our guys at the Oblates of St. Francis DeSales up there, DeSales, because the building used to be named the Bishop Walsh Center, and he was named McShay, rather, excuse me, I'm sorry, Bishop McShay Center, and he was named in the Pennsylvania report, and so they needed to remove his name, and I don't know of any other colleges that have buildings named for Dorothy Day, but I was so thrilled and delighted about that. And so I thought, what better? We'll use the same quote since it was already handy, and the same design had to be slightly different. But this was done by the incoming freshmen. So there was a little, and their social justice director, Jamie, kind of oversaw that and got these kids lined up. And all day long, we had this one done in a day because they were kind of coming and going all day long in their student union building. And again, similar, having a wonderful time, house paint. And it was all, so for some of these kids, it was their first time away from home, of course. So there was that little nervousness in starting college. And this was a way to kind of calm down. So this was the finished product there. And I can't get a good picture because I have clerestory windows across the top. And so the light just washes everything out. But it looks really cool. And finally, I'll share this last mural, and this is the most recent. It was just this past January in Reston, Virginia, at St. John Newman Church. And since it's run by administered by our guys, the Oblates of St. Francis DeSales, I wanted to use a quote from DeSales. And I love this one. "We should hide our littleness in God's greatness and stay there like a little bird beneath its mother's sheltering wing." And I just love that notion of God. You know, we're so used to all the God the Father images, and Francis DeSales spoke often about the maternal, motherly side of God, and Jesus himself, of course, said that like a mother hen. So what made it even better, I didn't realize this when I submitted the design, was this wall is right where the little preschool kids have to walk by every single day. So all these birds and eggs became kind of a little new kick to their building in their religious formation wing of their parish center. This is the custodian, the maintenance guy who was the first to show up. That happened in New York City too. The maintenance men were, of course, the first people in the morning, and they put the first dabs of paint on. And then later in the day, I remember a grandmother brought her beautiful little 5-year-old to paint, and I kind of panicked, and I thought, oh, I stood right behind her. She was wonderful. She was fast. She stayed in the lines. And she kept coming. Every time I turned around, she was saying, "What can I finish that? What can I do now?" So I finally gave her that worm to paint. And she was so thrilled at the end of it that she said, I'll never forget, it was a highlight of the week. She stood there. She was so excited. She said, I did a worm. And I thought, oh, this is wonderful. There's something for everybody, no matter what age. And here were other school kids who came in at the end of the day and when they were finished school. And these were the parish secretaries right there. I hope everybody's watching. I don't know. And they're with their parish nurse. Her arm was in a cast, but she didn't want to miss out on this, she said. So she painted a few letters of one of the retired priests there that lives in the house and works in the parish. And here's one of the birds on when so many people were showing up, I needed other things than just the wall where the words were. So the bird theme took off. So there's worms and feathers and birds. And there's the final product there in Reston, Virginia. So if you live down in the Virginia area, go check this one out. And they sent me this picture when they had the furniture back in place. And it's kind of fun. They too have clerestory windows, so it's hard to get a shot that's not washed out. But we're going to end with these last couple pictures. And this was the very first one I posted when all the hell broke loose with the virus and where we are today, the pandemic. And it's a prayer from Pope Francis. Oh, Mary, you always shine on our path as a sign of salvation and hope. We entrust ourselves to you, health of the sick. Now, health of the sick is one of the ancient titles of Mary from prayer litanies from like 1,000 years ago. And so I like seeing these traditional things in new light. And the image of Mary that we see here is called Aparecida, and she's one of the Pope's favorite images of Mary. She's Brazilian. It's a black Madonna that's the most revered icon of Mary in Brazil. And so I just wanted to make it special. This is one, oops, pardon me, I was working on last week on my own with sunflowers. To me, sunflowers are kind of a symbol of healing and springtime and abundance and all that. And I love Vincent van Gogh, who loved sunflowers himself. So I did this Madonna and Child in a field of sunflowers as a healing thing at this time of pandemic. And lastly, this one is for the medical people that are wearing garbage bags to work because they don't have enough supplies, and good people everywhere are sewing masks for them. And it's just heartbreaking to watch that on the news. So this is a Mary under the title, another ancient title, Our Lady of Refuge, in which in that title, Mary's always shown with her cape open with people inside coming to her for help and protection. So this is a prayer for healthcare people. And this is the coloring page, which I'll probably be posting at some point. And I want to end with these last two thoughts, or this, I guess it's the last thought from Pope Francis. With wounds in the heart, a united humanity will rise again. And that's what I can't help but think. I like the timing of this with springtime, and look out the window and see birds and blossoms on the trees and daffodils in our yard. And it's kind of, for a moment when you look out the window, it feels good, and you think, we're going to get through this. Right before coming on, across the street, there was 3 ambulances and cops, and I could see them bent over. Somebody had collapsed on the street. And so, of course, I had to go check it out and see what was happening. And 2 of the ambulances that were not needed, it was reassuring that so many showed up to help. But the 2 were taking off together at the same time, side by side in their cars, and speeding out the street. And I could hear one of the ambulance drivers yelling to the other, "I can save you." Like he was mimicking that commercial that's so popular on TV now, where there's speeding cars and the guy screaming, "I can save you." It was just a little moment of lightness in the midst of what could have been tragic. But no sooner did I come back in, and Father John,
This is how it works.
our
What he's
pastor
talking
was-
about is art. And okay.
Can you hear me?
About it, and it was
Father John
Thinking
came in and
about-
said that he
Yeah.
had just
Well, he'd be bigger if he took his pictures out, but he puts
in
that.
his church, and there was a woman sobbing in there that he stopped to talk to. She's pregnant with twins, and she's just so worried and about with the coronavirus. And so we chatted with her for a bit in Spanish, and gave her a food card, to get food. But I just thought, it's just around us all the time, and all we can do is be there for each other. And that was the lesson in there. And that's through my little way here is how that's why I'm loving these coloring pages. It's a way to, so send them in, folks. I'm happy to see them, and we're going to post them all at some point, I'm sure. I won't make a contest out of it because I don't believe in that, but it'd be fun for everybody to see each other's work. So.
Oh, Mickey, thank you so very much. You've given us much to keep in our hearts, and the images are so powerful in the ways that we can pray. And I know that I'm speaking for the other participants by giving you a big thank you for this time that we've had together. Technically speaking, I can say that this recording will become available probably on the Grunwald Guild's Facebook page, as well as Brother Mickey's Facebook page. I think it will be shared there as well. In case you want to, if you had to skip out for something and then come back in, if you think you missed something, or if you want to share it, that is a welcome and invited thing to do. Some of the images are just so touching, Mickey. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, you're so welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Something else to do these days, right?
Yeah. So
how do we open this to questions now, or chat? I don't see chat on my screen.